Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're diving into a really fascinating explainer. We're cracking open Unit 4 of the BCom Semester 4 Rural Marketing Syllabus, specifically Product and Pricing Strategies. So if you've ever wondered how massive corporate giants literally flip their entire business models upside down to survive and honestly thrive in India's super distinct rural economy, well, you're in the right place. We're going to unpack exactly how these companies engineer their products and carefully calculate their prices to capture the hearts and wallets of the rural consumer. So let's just get right into it.
All right, here's our roadmap for today's explainer. First, we'll look at the rural product mix. Second, combating spurious goods. Third, the power of packaging. And finally, number 4, rural pricing strategies. Okay, kicking things off with Section 1, the rural product mix and adapting to the market. I want you to imagine just for a second that you're a top executive at a massive consumer goods company. You'd probably realize pretty quickly that you can't just take your urban products and dump them onto a fundamentally different rural landscape, right? Instead, you have to meticulously reevaluate your product mix. Now, by definition, your product mix is the total number of product lines and variants your organization offers to its customers. It's basically your complete portfolio. And when you're targeting rural markets, you have to adapt this mix, simply because the lifestyle, the income, and the day-to-day needs of a rural consumer are distinctly different from an urban one. So when we break down that portfolio, it's really built on 4 key dimensions. We've got width, length, depth, and consistency. Take a look at that depth row. Let's use Hindustan Unilever, or HUL, as an example. They don't just sell one single type of close-up toothpaste. No way. They offer it in 3 different formulations, and then each of those formulations comes in 3 different sizes. So 3 times 3, that's 9 variants for just one single brand. And creating that kind of depth, it's absolutely crucial because it allows them to cater to very specific price points and unique usage habits of rural buyers. But, sometimes adapting the mix means you actually have to create an entirely new, completely stripped-down product. A great example of this is Maharaja Appliances and their Bonus washing machine. They realized something important. Rural consumers definitely wanted home appliances, but they couldn't afford the premium, feature-heavy urban models. And on top of that, they were totally tired of substandard, unreliable products. So what did Maharaja do? They launched a super sturdy, absolutely no-frills washing machine. No dryer, nothing extra, and they priced it at just 2,990 rupees. By doing that, they perfectly filled this massive gap between cheap, unbranded goods and the really expensive premium ones. Honestly, it's just a masterful example of product mix adaptation. Moving right along to Section 2, combating spurious goods. This is the copycat face-off.
And this brings us to, frankly, the villain of our explainer today. See, corporations face a massive, completely unorganized menace out in rural markets that literally eats away at their hard-earned profits. I mean, just look at the sheer audacity of some of these copycats. Instead of Lifebuoy soap, you get Loveboy. Instead of Tata tea, you get Tata. It's wild. These low-end entrepreneurs use almost identical pack designs, the same colors, sometimes even mimicking the embossed logos, all to dupe gullible consumers. And the primary motive here, it's simple. They want to capitalize on the immense trust that these established brands have spent decades building, while selling a much cheaper and usually severely inferior imitation.
So that brings us to a pretty critical question. Imagine you're this massive national brand, and you're losing millions to local fakes that look exactly like your product. How do you actually fight back? Because let's be real, you can't just sue every single tiny fly-by-night manufacturer in every remote village across the country.
Well, corporations have to outsmart them. They'll constantly upgrade their products to make them much harder to copy, and they run targeted rural sales schemes. But for me, the most fascinating tactic is when they promote quality consciousness. Companies will literally go straight into village markets and educate consumers on the actual physical harm of buying fakes. Like, for example, they'll demonstrate how spurious adhesive bindis, the ones made by tiny, unorganized units, can actually discolor your skin and trigger severe allergies if you keep using them. By educating the consumer directly about those health risks, they effectively destroy the market for the fake product. It's a brilliant counterattack.
Okay, let's jump into Section 3, the power of packaging and the sachet revolution. If you really want to beat the fakes and win over the rural consumer, your packaging strategy is arguably the most vital component of your entire marketing mix. It's a total game changer. And to understand why, just take a look at this massive data point from the National Council for Applied Economic Research. Their survey found that almost 90% of mass consumption goods were purchased by people earning less than 18,000 rupees a year. 90%. That is huge. It proves exactly why affordability is king here. Basically, if your product isn't offered at the absolute lowest possible unit price, you simply cannot enter the rural market, period.
So how do you actually lower that unit price without completely ruining your profit margins? The answer is the sachet revolution. Put yourself in the shoes of a rural consumer for a second. Let's say your daily wage is unsteady, meaning you can't really make large planned grocery purchases. Small packs win because they perfectly fit that unsteady day-to-day income. They also just make sense for how products are used. While a whole family might share a big box of detergent, they often prefer individual small packs for things like shampoo. Plus, rural consumers usually live in smaller homes with limited storage space. And hey, we can't forget the retailer. Village shops have incredibly tiny shelf space, so a string of brightly colored hanging sachets, it's highly space efficient, it's a visually appealing display, and it honestly solves problems for literally everyone in the supply chain.
Check out the shape and size configurations for major products here, like Mysore sandal soap and Close-Up toothpaste. Notice how Close-Up doesn't just stick to selling their standard 50, 100, or 150-gram tubes. Instead, they explicitly engineered a tiny 25-gram sachet. Now, this isn't just about giving the customer less product. It's actually a highly calculated strategy to lower the absolute unit price to just a few rupees. And what that does is make it practically irresistible for a rural consumer to try out a premium national brand, maybe for the very first time.
All right, bringing us to our final section, number 4, rural pricing strategies and winning price-sensitive consumers.
Because, let's face it, knowing what to sell is only half the battle. Knowing exactly how to price it, that's a psychological chess game, and it's where these rural markets are truly won or lost. Now, the first major strategy companies use here is called penetration pricing. It's an incredibly aggressive tactic. Basically, a company sets their initial price significantly lower than any of their existing competitors. And the goal? It's to rapidly grab massive market share and trigger explosive word-of-mouth promotion across villages. A company might actually take a loss on every single unit they sell at first, but they view that loss as an investment. They're building unshakable brand loyalty among highly price-sensitive buyers with the plan to eventually raise the price once they completely dominate that market. Now, I want you to contrast that with price skimming, which is also known as the skim the cream strategy. This is where a company sets a really high introductory price, usually when a product is brand new and completely unique. Imagine some new agricultural technology, like a solar-powered generator, entering a rural market for the first time with 0 competitors. The company is going to set that price high to maximize profits from the early adopters, which helps them recover their heavy development costs. Then, as competitors eventually start popping up and entering the space, the original company will lower their price step by step, effectively skimming each distinct layer of the market. But honestly, perhaps the most fascinating method out there is psychological pricing. This is all about setting prices that trigger emotion rather than relying on strict mathematical logic. In India, you'll often hear this called the BRAOU price. By pricing an item at, say, 99 rupees instead of 100, marketers are actually exploiting how the human brain processes numbers from left to right. Think about it. Even though the difference is just one single rupee, our brains automatically categorize 99 as being in the 90s. So it feels significantly cheaper, and it seems much farther away from that 100 rupee mark than it mathematically is. It's pretty wild how our brains work. Which leaves us with one final thought for you to ponder today. The next time you see a product hanging in a village shop or even your local supermarket and it's priced at exactly 99 rupees, ask yourself, is that really just a random discount? Or is it a carefully crafted, highly researched marketing strategy designed specifically to bypass your logic and win your mind? Because understanding these concepts from your syllabus, it doesn't just help you pass an exam, it literally changes how you see the world around you. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today, and keep questioning the strategies behind the products you buy. See you next time.